look at visual effects from someone who's worked in visual effects and film and TV production from an executive level. That is what I'll be getting into today with my guest. What's good people? Welcome back to the channel here on Braveheart Productions and the Silly, Nerdy, and Wordy Podcast. BK here. And today I will be having another nerdy conversation with my guest. And he started off as a local newscaster in the DC and Baltimore area, then went on to work in 14 films, including the summer blockbuster Independence Day that won an Oscar for visual effects, then worked on the first two live-action Transformers films in 2007 and 2009, Revenge of the Fallen. He's also been a senior executive at DreamWorks, Sony, and 20th Century Fox, produced some indie films, and did some TV work on Fringe that aired on Fox, and Hawaii Five-0 that aired on CBS, which both shows I enjoy. But now he's working at the Suka company as the founder and CEO, and it is a focus app that bundles all the tools necessary together to enter into a flow state so you can have a healthy and productive workday. Everyone, welcome to the show, Steven Puri. How are you today?
That was quite an intro. I'll mention there are a couple things in there that I was only tangentially involved in, like Hawaii Five-0, not really my gig. Like I don't do a lot of TV stuff, but Alex Kurtz and Bob Worsey, with whom we were all working together. Yeah. That was something they came aboard to show run. So some of those credits, awesome. Got to work on a lot of big summer movies.
Yes, you did.
I got to work with a lot of directors who were at the top of their game. And super fun. And a lot of that is informing what I do now, which is what were the techniques and the practices I saw for these high performers that can be applied if you want to write something, if you want to code something, if you want to, do great work. And that's why we created Suka. So here we are. Let's go. What do you want to talk about?
That's interesting that you say that, because I have a question that leans into what you did and how you use it. But first, I guess, I know you've been asked about it, but tell me a little bit about the Suka company and what are you most proud of, to hopefully you haven't been asked a question like that.
Wow. That is such a generous question. Okay, so here's kind of the arc of my life so far, which is I started out, I was the son of two engineers. My mom was a software engineer at IBM. My dad was a hardware chip designer at IBM. Okay. Right? So I initially was sort of engineering minded. Went to the University of Southern California, which has a great cinema TV school, right? One of the best in the world.
A lot of great people come out of there.
Sorry?
There's a lot of great people come out of there.
Yeah, so actually the stables right in front of my dorm were the old stables that were turned into the cinema TV school where Lucas and Spielberg studied. It was this grungy one-story converted stables. And when they knocked it down to build some new fancy building that some alumni donated, right? Some alumnus donated. The funny thing is, a buddy of mine in my dorm who was a cinema TV student, he said this. We were out one night. He said, think of all the famous filmmakers who have used those two brass handles on the front doors of the stables that were the cinema school. Mm-hmm. He's like, when they knock it down, I'm going to climb over the fence and steal those brass handles. Because Steven used them, George used them, all these guys. And he did. I don't know where they are now, but in that pile of rubble, he dug out the two brass doors of the front doors of the cinema school and kept them. I was like, God bless. So anyway, to make this brief, because I was at USC and had a lot of friends in cinema, at that moment in time is when cinema went digital. Suddenly computers are being used to do it, nonlinear editing with the Avids, Pro Tools for sound, Silicon Graphics was making computers to do visual effects, right?
Yeah.
I happened to speak creative pretty well, and I also had an engineering background. So I was in this very small set of people who could do both. And that was a really high demand sort of set of skills. So my career took off randomly. If you'd asked me 3 years before, will you be working with Mel Gibson, Jim Cameron, David Fincher, on these movies, I was like, no, man, I'm probably not. I'll be a journalist or something. Yeah. And then suddenly that worked out. You're right. We did Independence Day. Loved Roland Emmerich and Dean Devlin. We set up a company together, sold that company in my 20s, which was fun and gave me a couple of years to screw around. And that's when I was like, okay, what I want to do is actually want to get into film, not making a digital part of someone else's movie,
Yeah.
but how can I help make the whole movie? And that's how I rose up, to be a studio executive with Alex Kurtzman, Bob Orsi at DreamWorks, and a vice president at Fox doing the Die Hard and the Wolverine stuff and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And you asked me specifically about the Suka company and what I'm most proud of. And I'll tell you this. I recognized a couple of years ago, I have a huge problem, like not uncommon, but definitely a little moment for me of like, I procrastinate. I get distracted when I'm working. It's just that feeling of like, I could have gotten more done today. What happened? Blah, blah. And I looked at the patterns of really like screenwriters whose names who are writing $1 million screenplays, right?
Mm-hmm.
I looked at their habits. It was interesting that they understood how to get into a state of flow, a flow state. And I wasn't really clear when I was in film what that was, but subsequently I read about it and I was like, this is amazing. So we created an app just to help people drop into a flow state, whether they're screenwriters, designers, engineers, like whatever you're doing. Yeah. So that I'm actually super proud of this. I had a son 7 months ago. I got a little baby.
Congratulations.
And thank you. I love him more than I can put into words. And I think a lot now about stuff I didn't think of 10 years ago. Like the generation that's going to be here when I'm gone, his generation.
Mm-hmm.
What has our generation done to make the world better for them? Because I don't think it's Facebook and TikTok and Insta. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not that. It's what tools do we give you? So if you're ready to do something great, if you agree you have something great inside you, you can get it out, man. Whether it is a screenplay, a novel, if you want to start a restaurant, you want to start a company, whatever it is, like do the thing. Don't sit on the sofa scrolling, because that's how a lot of technology is set up, is please be distracted. And I'm super guilty of that. So kind of made this for myself and now it's taken off. So that's the thing I'm most proud of. And I really hope my son and daughter, when they are old enough to understand daddy does something for work, they know more about Suka than they know about Die Hard 5.
Yeah. So I guess one question now, a little bit about Suka, but also about your previous works, as I can get into that. But so from my understanding, when you're at the level you were at as an executive, working with all these different studios and the projects, at least you start off initially working with one project. You get into that, you're in the production phase, but then at a certain point, you start to take on other projects, whether they go into pre-production or principal photography or early phase development. And so now, but you're still working on the current project, finishing that up. So you're at one point in time, you're working on multiple projects. So my question is, can you tell me a time when you had a couple projects at once, if you remember those names? If not, that's okay. And then also from that experience, the lesson that you've taken from doing those high priority things at once into what you're doing now at the Suka company.
So super cool. So let me say this. The path for a lot of people in Hollywood, and obviously Hollywood, the film business, has contracted a lot in the past 10, 15 years, right? Because maybe 20 years ago, there were not a lot of other options. Like there wasn't Facebook and social media to distract you. The gaming options weren't as robust as they are now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now Hollywood has felt that contraction and the deals are getting smaller. Fewer movies are getting made. They're really aiming just to do like a Marvel or DC movie or a really tiny movie. Like that mid-range movie is kind of gone now.
Mm-hmm.
So Hollywood, the jobs have evolved, right? So let me lay out for you like how typically you become a producer or a studio executive.
Okay.
Assuming your dad's name is not Paramount or, Metro Golden Mayer or something, right?
Exactly.
So a lot of Hollywood is relationship driven, right?
Yes,
I'm
sure.
Very subjective. This is not a business where, it's all ones and zeros and you can add them up and get the right answer. Someone may love a script. Someone may hate a script. That script may get made. It may be a hit. It may be a flop. Like there's so many variables and there's so much subjective nature that means the relationships are really important. So when you come to Hollywood, you generally start out as an assistant of some sort. And Hollywood assistants are on the phone calls. They do everything for their boss. So you listen on the phone call, what he's talking about or she's talking about. you're taking notes after the call. You're like, right, I saw we got to send BK that script. Oh, we have to send Puri the dailies, and you're sort of relied upon this. It's a grunt job, but you learn a lot because you're kind of the arms and legs for your boss, right?
Yeah.
So when you do that, you're doing it with 2,000-3,000 other assistants around Hollywood, right? You're all kind of in the same graduating class in Hollywood. Like you're trying to, learn everything you can and make relationships and get to the next level. So then hopefully if you've done well, you get a job as a junior executive and then you slowly move up, the ladder, which is what I did. I was the first assistant to the president of Paramount. That was a great job because I met a lot of people. You work for the president of the studio and, you meet people. And I was kind of the gatekeeper to him. So you had to be nice to me, which is cool, right?
Right, of course.
So that turned into a junior executive job at Sony, at a production company over on the Sony lot, the old MGM lot in Culver City. Did that for a little over a year, maybe a year, 2 years. And then went to DreamWorks. That was a great period of time for me, the few years at DreamWorks. Rose up, was an executive vice president for Alex Kurtz and Bob Orsi, who were, writers there. And that time, it was the Transformers 1 and 2 era, Eagle Eye, The Proposal, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
And they had done when I met them, they had done Mission Impossible 3 and The Island and Zorro, and they'd come off Alias, the J.J. Abrams series.
Oh, I love that show.
They had written on Alias, and they were just, I got to tell you, amazing people to work with because they were so in love with the craft, genuinely loved film, screenwriting, and working with them up my game. Like I learned a lot about screenwriting from them. And that turned into an offer from Fox to go over there. And I thought that was interesting to go. I mean, I grew up watching the Die Hard movies. To be the executive on the next Die Hard movie sounded kind of cool, Be the executive on the next Wolverine movie sounded kind of cool. So I did that for like 2 years. Didn't really dig Fox. Not a great, culture fit. And then, that sort of led to, well, I'm not sure I want to be doing Die Hard 6. And, I really didn't respect my boss and he didn't dig me. And I was like, I kind of want to get out of the sequel, prequel, franchise, spinoff, business. And that was when I was like, okay, with a friend, we started a little company, little tech startup to work around this idea of like productivity and how your mind works. And that really led me deeply into flow states. Okay. And that's why I was like, oh, when I first had an experience in a flow state, I was like, I got so much done. I feel great. I have the afternoon free now. How do you do this all the time? Like, why didn't someone tell me in college about flow states? It's just so different. And that is when I was like, oh, you know what? There are a bunch of writers I worked with. This is what they were doing. They didn't really talk about it being a flow state, but this is how they did great work. And that was super interesting to me. And that's kind of the arc of how we got here on this podcast.
So I want to talk a little bit about your visual effects because you did work on it at Independence Day. So when you're working on that, are you, for instance, I guess the Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen, I recently rewatched the special features on that again. And
right. I didn't do visual effects on Transformers. That was an earlier part of my career when I did visual effects.
When you were doing visual effects, like how often was a director coming to, so when I was watching that, Michael Bay was going to the artists, he was talking to them, he even went over into Lucasfilm and then to Digital Domain. So were you in constant communication with the director and department heads? And
often you're on set. With the kind of movies that I did, there are so many visual effects. Every day, practically every day, there's a visual effects scene. So you have visual effects supervisor, often producer, coordinator on set. You have teams back at the office doing the scanning, the manipulation, the recording, all that kind of stuff. So it becomes a very tight team. And then when the movie's over, it's like bye-bye, who's working on what next? It's independent. It's like a gypsy lifestyle.
So were you working on it all the way, I guess, possibly up to the premiere, or at least until like in terms of getting the
Independence Day in particular, or another one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll tell you. So I came to Independence Day, and Roland Emmerich and Dean Nevlin had done Stargate before that, right?
Okay.
Which was kind of this like little B sci-fi movie that did pretty well relative to its budget. It was like, oh, look, these guys, they're sci-fi geeks, right? And so Fox had bought their next movie where they had pitched, hey, it's been a while since someone's made a good disaster film, like the old, Towering Inferno and, that sort of War of the Worlds. And
Okay.
why don't we reinvent that genre? Right. So they wrote Independence Day, which has a good heart, as a message of like, oh, we look past all our differences here as humans if there's a greater threat that unites us, right? Which I think is a very important, especially in this day and age, what's happening in the world, right?
Okay.
Let's look for more unity and less division. And so they set that up. Fox had a very small budget for it. It was like about 73 million.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, you guys are, low budget sci-fi geeks, good luck with this. And so when I met them, it was still this small, say scrappy. Scrappy is a good word.
Mm-hmm.
It's a scrappy production of trying to figure out how to shoot this big vision of an epic disaster movie on a very small budget, right? So I'll tell you a funny thing that happened is as we were working on it, we had a joke that you could request from Fox like, hey man, we ran out of pencils. Could you send over a box of pencils, right? And they would make you fill out a form in triplicate. And you would call a week later and they'd lost it. And they'd resubmit it. You call a week later and they were like, it's come. And you're just like, oh my God, I'll just go out and buy the pencils. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then if you remember this, there was a teaser trailer where the White House blows up at the end.
Yeah. Yeah.
And audiences went ape shit for it, right?
Yeah.
So that Monday, Fox called us in the visual effects department. Obviously, Roland Dean had been talking to them, but Fox, the head of post, called us, which is weird because normally we're the one bugging, like, hey, can we get those pencils? How about those pencils? What do you think? Come on, guys, we really need pencils. And Fox called us and said, hey, do you need anything to make sure you finish on time? Like the movie's dated Independence Day. It's got to come out, for Independence Day weekend, right?
Yeah.
So how are you guys looking to finish on time? Do you need anything else? And we, of course, being like the ugly stepchildren, were like, Daddy, can we have those pencils? And they were like, no, we were thinking more like, do you need any flames or infernos? And they're naming like $1 million pieces of equipment.
Mm.
And we were kind of like, what? I mean, it's almost like every night your dad comes home and asks you, how's your homework? And then one night he's like, do you want a Ferrari? And you're like, what? What? And we realized, oh man, this is how the studio works. Is that trailer tested so well when it went out?
Mm-hmm.
It's suddenly like the attention of the studio just like swings around. It goes, Independence Day is going to be a hit. What do you need? Just make the date, make the date, make the date. Do you need money? Do you need more people? Do you like, because the thing you can't get more time. So we want to know. And that was such a lesson because from there on out, it was just a crunch of finishing on time. Like I had a car accident. You're going to laugh. We were working about 120 hours a week. No kidding. Like I was driving home one night at 3, 4 in the morning and I fell asleep in the driveway of my apartment building. And my car just ran into the side of the building. Like I was sitting there waiting for the gate to open, and I was so tired I fell asleep, and the car just rolled forward. And like so, we got an RV to drive us around. It was like, this is dangerous. Like Steven's helping produce, visual effects for the movie, and you guys are driving sleep deprived home. So we got an RV that drove us around the rest of the movie. It was pretty intense, but we finished on time.
So to go with that. The visual effects, when you started out, it was in digital technology, digital effects. Mm-hmm. So I'm sure you've paid attention to like how things have changed in terms of the technology that's being used. So what are your thoughts on how things have changed in terms of what they're using now with the volume and like everything they're doing now in terms of how they use visual effects in, obviously telling the story, like how Avatar is able to do what they're doing and Star Wars has, been using the volume. Have you been able to keep up with that? I don't know if you ever got a chance to work with the volume.
Yeah, I think it's interesting what's happening now, but I think what's more interesting is what's going to happen in a year or two, which is you are going to see movies made that are photoreal, that can be adapted and changed easily from people you've never heard of. You know, the way in which we are creating tools that are getting cheaper and cheaper to use, more powerful every day, and allow you to say, hey, I'm going to actually animate this movie idea I have. I wrote a screenplay. I live in Iowa. I decided this is my project. I'm just going to create it right now. Let us admit, most of them will not be good. Right? It's really hard to write a great screenplay and direct a great movie. You know, there's so many greats that have to line up for something to be really great.
Yeah.
But someone's going to do it. There's going to be a bunch of, you know, garbage, but you see it already in short form content. Like if you're on any of those apps, the TikToks, Insta Snaps, whatever, like you're seeing AI generated, you know, videos that are maybe 5, 10, 20 seconds long. They're approaching the quality of the videos right before and right after them. The real live action 15-second video right before it. Like you're kind of like, I don't know, those two things are getting pretty close now. And there was a big debate about, oh, well, will audiences accept, you know, digital actors and digital movies? It's not like watching, you know, Audrey Hepburn and you know, like Mel Gibson run across the screen or whatever, you know. And here's the thing: there's actually a great episode of I think it's Charlie Rose with Keanu Reeves. By the way, really nice guy. I did one movie with him. Truly one of the nice people you meet in Hollywood. And Keanu was telling a story about how he went to dinner recently with a director he had worked with over at his house. Just a family dinner, quiet dinner, right? And he said in the course of dinner, the director has, I think, 2 teenage daughters. And one of the daughters worked up the, you know, sort of gumption to go, hey, you know, Dad's friend Keanu, we know you're really famous for these Matrix movies, but honestly, we've never seen them. Like I'm 16, my sister's 14 or whatever, right?
Right.
What is so great? What's the big deal with them? Why is it Matrix, you know? And Keanu said, oh, well, you know, they're movies about a guy who wakes up and realizes he's living in a simulation. It's not his real life, and he wants to get back to his real life. And the daughter was like, oh, okay, why? And he's like, oh, well, you know what? He realizes everything he thinks is his real world is actually made in the computer. And he wants to get back to the real world of his life. And the daughter was like, yeah, I got that. Why? And Keanu was like, oh my God, I'm old. Oh my God, I get what you're asking. You're not asking, oh my God. You're like, if you're happy and you're living in a digital world, what's the big deal? Like, enjoy it, you know? So that I think is a generational thing that's just going to change. People are just going to enjoy content because they're content. And it'll be fun if you have a Tilly Norwood type that you enjoy, or still could be fun if you have a Brad Pitt or whatever, or Chris Hemsworth that you dig. But stars don't really sell movies the way they used to, you know?
That's interesting. I've heard that a lot because, you know, of some creators that I follow, they've kind of said that where, you know, back in the day, like, Will Smith is doing something. Tom Cruise is like, I'm going. And today, it's not that. Like, it's probably more so maybe the director. Like, it's Chris Nolan. It's he just made Sinners. I can't think of his name right now. But if he's doing something, it's like a few directors, and like I want to go see it. So it's not the same. It has to be the actor, and then the actual story and what it's about. And then the actor is kind of the cherry on top, so to speak.
Yes, I think you said it very succinctly, which is there was a time when it was like, oh, we have to go see the Will Smith movie this weekend or the Humphrey Bogart movie this week, whatever it was. For the history of cinema, it's like, I need to go see the blah, blah movie this weekend. I can't remember the last time anyone I know said they had to go see this star's movie.
Yeah, I'm kind of there. It's like for me, it's like it's Chris Nolan and
right, not like you said, not actors.
Yeah, it's the director. Like I know there's going to be or someone involved, so that's interesting.
Imagine Chris Nolan back in Memento days had access to the digital tools that everyone will have in the next year or two. And Chris Nolan's just sitting there going like, I got a great idea. Like, imagine making Memento with today's tools or, you know, maybe 2027's tools. You might have a lot of people like Chris Nolan. He was the one who actually had the gumption to go through and follow it through and make it. But suppose it became easier. Maybe you'd have 3 Chris Nolan types that all made their Memento-like movie.
Yeah.
Could be interesting. Well, what's the bandwidth for people to watch it? I don't know. We'll see how much appetite they have to keep watching more.
Okay, so I want to talk about, so you did some work in TV in terms of just overseeing stuff, correct?
Mm-hmm. Some
So the,
stuff.
say what?
More in film, but some stuff in TV. Transformers
What?
Prime, for example, I set that up.
So the TV production schedule in terms of like the episode count, it used to be 22. Nowadays, it's kind of come down to, I'm just speaking about network TV. It's been like 18 to 21. It's not like 22 or more. It used to be that way, but there's very few of them now today. It's probably like a handful of networks that still do it. But what were your thoughts on that? Were you able to see that transition while you were in Hollywood in terms of
honestly, what you're talking about was really after I left, because when I left, I had a feeling. I was at Fox and I was like, there is so much downward pressure on Hollywood right now because of all this competition for eyeballs. Like, you know, kids are playing on their Xbox and their PS2s and they're, you know, on Facebook and Insta, and they're not going to the movies, right? So there's all this like downward pressure on the revenues. And then you have, right after I left is when you really had like that influx of Netflix, Apple, you know, all the people coming to town. They were like, okay, we kind of have tech money and we're going to need content, right? So I agree with you that the model of, you know, how these things are ordered in a block has been evolving and will continue to evolve. And that, remember how revolutionary it seemed when it'd just be all the episodes are dropped today. You can binge watch it this weekend, right? Right.
Yeah.
That's these things are all experiments, you know, and it's going, yes, the model's going to change. It's not going to be like the rigid old days where every week you make an episode for 22 weeks and it airs that next week. You know, like that era may not be the only game in town.
I mean, I would say it's different because I've heard a lot of comments or commentary, like if someone says we're going to drop all the episodes at once, I've heard things that say, well, they don't have a lot of confidence in it, so we're not going to do a weekly release. Where you do a weekly release, you have confidence in it because you want it to spread out. It's like, oh, let's throw it out there. But then there are models that do it and they are successful at it. So it just, I guess it depends on the property. It depends on who's releasing it.
Yep. And I think it's hard to just say, oh, they're dropping these all at once because they think they're bad, or they have more confidence because they're dripping it out. Like, I think the release schedules have a lot more experimentation in them right now as people are trying, especially people who own content factories, are trying to figure out how do they optimize, get the most amount of revenue out of this stuff. So again, and I'm not an expert on this. This is just me talking to you as like someone who, you know, is interested in the field, but it's going to continue to evolve. And you're going to have, the thing is, like, look at the recent films with like YouTubers, where the YouTubers could say, hey man, I built an audience making these videos on YouTube. I'm going to go make a 90-minute feature, you know, come watch Backrooms or whatever Markiplier's thing was, you know, and people showed up. They're like, okay, cool. Yeah, kind of digging. Let's try it out.
Yeah.
Will YouTube turn into, you know, that kind of, will there be an evolution where YouTube becomes like another Netflix, another, you know, Apple kind of thing? So who knows?
It's definitely slowly trending it that way.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to look at some of your projects, and it seemed like you did a lot of your roles were visual effects producer in a lot of films. Specifically, I think you mentioned Braveheart in terms of Mel Gibson. What do you remember most about that in terms of and what you were doing in your visual effects producer role? Like the most memorable thing, if you can talk about that.
On Braveheart?
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you. So that era was before scripts were digital, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we were working in visual effects, which means you were trying to figure out which films are going to be financed and go next, because that's where the money is, and then get a copy of those scripts and hopefully meet with the director producer and say like, hey, we could do your visual effects, right? You know, we're a vendor, we're a service house. Like ILM, like Digital Domain, like, you know, like go down the list. There are a lot of great ones, right? Rhythm and Hughes at the time. And so someone had slipped us the Braveheart script, and we had gotten a meeting with Bruce Davey, who was Mel's partner, and Steve McAvity and Jim Lemley, like the production team. And I didn't know much about it. This was before there was a lot of buzz. Like Ain't It Cool News was just taking off, I think, at that point. So you didn't really know much about these things, but we knew it was this period epic that Mel Gibson wanted to direct. And it was like a Tuesday night, and you've gone home so many nights in a row with a bag full of scripts you have to read, and you hate them all. They're just most of them are awful, right? And I remember looking at this, and it was thick. It was like 160, 180 pages, something where it just is like, oh man, I'm like, okay, I'm going to read like 20, 30 pages, enough to be in the meeting, be like, right, yeah, this is the one about the Scottish guy. Cool, okay, play along. Cut to 2 a.m., and I was finishing the last page. I was like, this thing is so ridiculously good. So we all came into the office next morning, and everyone was just like, we have to do whatever we need to do to get this. Like, this is a great movie. This is why you make movies, And keep in mind, we had done before that, like, Demolition Man. So I'm just saying we are not, like hoity-toity. Yeah. Like, you're working for money, okay? Yeah. So yeah, they came in, and Mel came because he was pretty serious about being a director. We didn't think Mel, the big personality, would come in.
Right.
He's like, yeah, I'm the director. I'm here. This is not me as a star. I'm not going to star in it. If you remember, he was not, he was adamant that he was not going to star in Braveheart because he wanted to be developing a career as a director, right? So he had done Man Without a Face, I think, at this point, sort of smaller, one to bite off to develop his directing confidence.
Okay, of course, yeah.
And then this was one where finally, we'd met with him numerous times. He'd asked us to work on Immortal Beloved as sort of a audition to get Braveheart. We did that. We also designed and produced the logo for his company, Icon Productions. If you ever see that lightning bolts in the cracks of the Russian, if you ever watch one of the movies, the Icon movies, you'll see this animation. It's like lightning bolts, and the lightning bolts sort of retreat, and they're in the cracks of this old fresco or mosaic. And we got the movie, but it only got greenlit because Sherry Lansing was at Paramount, and she shared the movie with Fox financially, and she would only greenlight it if Mel agreed to star. And he finally had to cave and be like, okay, fine, I'll star in it so I can direct this thing. And, he was great in it. It was like manufactured for him. He's fantastic in it. And I had a bet when it was done and we had screened it. I was like, this is probably the best movie I've worked on, to be blunt. I'd worked on True Lies, worked on Seven, worked on, Carlito's Way, worked on a bunch of movies, and some were good, some were bad. But man, it had a hard time box office wise. I made a bet with a buddy of mine when I saw the movie. I made a bet that it would make over 75 million domestically.
Okay.
Domestic box office, right? And my friend who worked in television was like, no, man, period movies, they don't work. Like, no one wants to see them. So it came out, didn't make anywhere near 75. And my buddy was like, okay, I want to collect the bet. I was like, hold on, let's see what's going to happen, right? And they released it a second time and a third time to get Academy Award attention, right?
Of course.
And then it got the Academy Award nominations. And they released it a fourth time after it had been nominated to like drum up interest for the actual Academy Awards.
Yeah.
And then it won Best Picture, and they released it domestically a fifth time. And my friend was like, this is not fair. This is like, no movies can find. And it made over 75. So I was like, pay up. He's like, this is insane. How many movies get re-released that many times? I was like, we never specified how long a period of time. It made over 75 domestic box office. I collected lunch or dinner or whatever it was.
But 75 at that time was a big deal, I would say, right?
Yeah. Especially for a period movie about a guy you'd never heard of. A cool story, William Wallace, but woof.
I want to stick to the time, so I think that's all the questions that I have. But I do want to ask, is there anything that you want to promote or talk about that maybe you have that's upcoming, whether it's about your company or anything else?
Definitely something I'd like to say, which is this is a lot of why I speak on flow states. I mentioned, I have a son now, so I've been thinking more about the next generation and thinking about my frailties, my foibles, right? I get distracted, I procrastinate. And I do operate from a thesis, having worked with some really talented people, that we all have something great inside us.
Mm.
And the question of this lifetime is, are you going to get it out? That's really what it's about. It's not, do you have something? That great thing may be a poem, a book, a recipe, a restaurant, an app. You might be a great pilot, like whatever it is, but you have something. Maybe you're like a young Michael Jordan. But there are so many beautifully made things in our modern world to distract you and make sure you don't get it out, right? And I think that's criminal. I really think it's sad that you have so many people in Silicon Valley, the smartest engineers, the best designers, and they're not focused on something like solving homelessness, like curing cancer, blah, blah. They're focused on like, okay, how do we keep you in Instagram one more second? Because if we're in one more second, we could sell one more ad, and then Mark could buy a bigger yacht next year. Like 450-foot yacht is not enough. He needs like 500-foot yacht, right? And
yeah.
You have this smartest engineers and designers focused on how do we make sure no one does anything valuable with their life? Like Mark Zuckerberg would be really happy if at 80 years old, you are still on the sofa scrolling and double tapping.
That is true. Yeah.
That is criminal. So if there is anything that I want to promote, it's the idea that it's like, do one thing today that will move your life forward. Doesn't have to be 5. Doesn't have to be something that takes 10 days to do. But when you wake up in the morning, before you touch your phone, before you open Facebook, Insta, TikTok, Snap, X, whatever your, sort of vice is, before you touch your phone, just go to yourself like, what's the one thing I could do today that moves my life forward towards, this is my great thing. I made it. I did it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And do it. Do that before you go to bed. Do that thing. If outline the next chapter of that book you wanted to write. Look up competing apps and see what they do. Is there a space for your kind of app? Like research what it takes to open a restaurant. You have an idea for a restaurant. Like do that thing. That is what I care about more than anything, that we empower people to say, I'm going to do something, as opposed to what like Zuckerberg and Elon want, which is, hey man, just give me your life. Okay. Because I'm going to sell it to these advertisers and I want to keep the money. It's how I got rich. Screw you guys.
That's good. That's good advice. Because I guess at the end of the day, they're wanting to, increase the bottom line, which you should. But there's also so many things in the world that people that have the smarts and the capabilities and the resources that they can do and help. But, everybody's going to do what they're going to do, and there's just a few people that will actually
saying, go do the thing. Go do the thing, make me proud.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Steven, for coming on to my show. Thank you for listening and the people at your company.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it.
And whoever's listening out there, thanks for listening.
Thank you so much. Again, this is the Silly, Nerdy, and Wordy Podcast. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and follow here on Crew Boy Productions. That is all the time I have for now. Hope all of you guys have amazing vibes for the rest of your day. And until next time, we will talk soon. Hello there. You stayed to the end. Thank you so much for watching and listening. If you like these type of nerdy breakdowns in movies and live Broadway, TV coverage, and industry insights, hit the subscribe button here on YouTube and subscribe to the Silly, Nerdy, and Wordy Podcasts wherever you get your podcasts. Just hit the subscribe button. And you can also follow me on TikTok at NerdyPodcaster124. Just hit the follow button. It's free. And again, thank you so much for watching and listening. And I'll see you in the next one.